Welcome back to the Hauntline. Tonight, we invite you to check in, to leave your worries at the door, and perhaps a little more than you bargained for. We're not talking about an extra towel charge or a minibar mishap. We're talking about the pieces of yourself you thought were permanent, the memories that stitch together the tapestry of you. Imagine a place where those threads begin to unravel, one by one, until all that's left is a terrifying, echoing emptiness. Tonight, we explore such a place. We explore room 217. Arthur Finch considered himself a man of routine, of meticulous planning. A mid-level accountant, his life was a ledger of debits and credits, each entry precise, each outcome predictable. His annual solo retreat was no different. A week of quiet contemplation, far from the city's cacophony. This year he'd chosen the Grand Chantry Hotel, a relic of a bygone era, its Gothic architecture promising a certain stoic charm. He'd booked it online, a last-minute deal for a classic king. He hadn't specified a room number. He wouldn't have thought to. The lobby was imposing. Dust motes danced in the weak afternoon light, filtering through stained glass windows, depicting scenes Arthur couldn't quite decipher. Blurred figures in dramatic, unsettling poses. An elderly concierge, with eyes like chips of obsidian, greeted him with a smile that didn't quite reach them. "Mr. Finch, I presume? Welcome to the Grand Chantry. We have you in room 217. A particular favorite." Arthur remembered thinking the man's emphasis on particular was odd, but dismissed it as quirky hotel charm. The key felt cold in his hand, heavier than it looked. As he walked towards the ancient, rattling elevator, he glanced back. The concierge was still watching him, that same fixed smile plastered on his face. Room 217. The number on the door was slightly askew, the brass tarnished. Inside, it was spacious, if a little dated. Heavy velvet curtains, the color of dried blood, blocked out most of the light. A four-poster bed dominated the center, its dark wood carved with intricate, almost unsettling patterns. An old writing desk sat in the corner, a single, unopened envelope resting upon it. Arthur unpacked methodically. Shirts here, trousers there, toiletries arranged by size in the cavernous, porcelain-tiled bathroom. He found himself humming a tune, something from his childhood, but what was it? He paused, toothbrush in hand, trying to grasp the melody, the name. It was like trying to catch smoke. Gone. He shrugged, probably just tired from the drive. Later that evening, attempting to call his sister Clara, a weekly ritual, he found himself staring blankly at his phone. Her number, he knew it as well as his own, but as he tried to recall it, his mind was a frustrating fog. He scrolled through his contacts, a knot of unease tightening in his chest. Clara, he muttered, relieved when her name appeared. But the brief lapse, it was unsettling. He chalked it up to the quiet. Too much quiet, perhaps, after the city's constant thrum. The room, however, wasn't entirely quiet. There was that hum just at the edge of hearing. And the whispers. Were they just the old building settling? The next morning, Arthur decided to indulge in one of his favorite pastimes, chess. He'd brought his travel set, its worn wooden pieces familiar in his hands. He set up the board on the ornate, slightly sticky mahogany table by the window, white to E4, a classic opening. He pondered his next move, then his opponent's hypothetical response. But the strategies, the familiar gambits, they felt distant, shrouded. He knew he loved chess, knew he'd spent countless hours hunched over boards like this. But why? The passion, the intellectual thrill, it was muted, like an echo of an emotion rather than the emotion itself. He pushed the board away, a flicker of something akin to fear, or perhaps just profound confusion, stirring within him. He decided a walk might clear his head. As he reached for his coat, he noticed the envelope on the writing desk again. It was plain, no return address, just his name, Arthur Finch, typed neatly on the front. He hadn't seen it delivered. Had it been there when he arrived? He couldn't quite remember. His memory of checking in yesterday was hazy around the edges, like an old photograph left in the sun. Inside, a single sheet of hotel stationery. Typed on it was a simple, chilling question. Who are you without your yesterdays? Arthur stared at the note, his blood running cold. A prank? Some bizarre art installation the hotel was running? He looked around the room, half expecting to find a hidden camera. But there was only the oppressive silence, the heavy furniture, the blood-red curtains, and that incessant low hum. He crumpled the note, his hand trembling slightly, and threw it in the waste bin. But the question, it burrowed into his mind. That afternoon, he tried to read. He'd brought a collection of Poe, his favorite author since when? He frowned. He could picture the cover of his first Poe anthology, a raven silhouetted against a purple sky. But the feeling it had evoked, the thrill of discovering those dark tales, that was gone. He read The Telltale Heart, a story he knew he'd loved, dissected, even written essays on in college, high school. The details were slippery, like water through his fingers. The words on the page were just words, symbols, without their usual resonance. His own heart, however, beat a frantic rhythm against his ribs, a counterpoint to the story he could no longer connect with. He slammed the book shut. This wasn't right. This wasn't him. Arthur Finch loved Poe. Arthur Finch was good at chess. Arthur Finch remembered his sister's phone number. But the Arthur Finch in room 217, he was becoming a stranger. Days bled into one another, a syrupy, disorienting flow. Arthur stopped trying to keep track. What was the point? Each morning, he'd wake with a fresh layer of himself, seemingly sandpapered away. He'd look in the mirror and see a man he vaguely recognized, but the history behind the eyes was becoming increasingly opaque. He tried to recall his parents' faces. His mother. She had kind eyes. What color? Her laugh. What did it sound like? He squeezed his eyes shut, desperate to conjure her image, the warmth of her presence. All he got were fleeting impressions, like smudged charcoal drawings. His father, a strong jaw, a scent of pipe tobacco. The specifics were gone, leaving only a hollow ache of loss for something he could no longer define. He found another note. This one was slipped under his door. What defines you? Your job, your family, your name? His job. Accountant, numbers, order. He clung to that. He tried to do some mental calculations, simple multiplication, anything to prove his mind was still his. But the figures swam before his eyes, refusing to align. He remembered the office, the fluorescent lights, the scent of stale coffee, but his colleagues' faces, their names, they were like words written in sand at low tide. He started talking to himself, his voice raspy, unfamiliar in the oppressive quiet of room 217. My name is Arthur Finch. I am an accountant. I live in... Where did he live? The name of the city, the street, his apartment number, all gone. A wave of panic, cold and sharp, washed over him. He rushed to his wallet, fumbling for his driver's license. There it was, his name, his address, proof. But looking at the photo, he felt a profound disconnect. The man in the picture, was that really him? The eyes held a spark, a knowledge that the man in the mirror no longer possessed. He avoided the staff. The few times he ventured out for food, a grim, solitary affair in the cavernous, mostly empty dining room, he felt their eyes on him. The concierge, always there, always with that knowing, unreadable smile. Did they know what was happening? Were they part of it? He'd try to ask, to form the words, but his throat would close up. What would he even say? Excuse me, your hotel seems to be eating my memories. The room itself felt alive. The patterns in the dark wood of the bed seemed to shift and writhe when he wasn't looking directly at them. The shadows in the corners deepened, pulsed. And the hum was no longer just background noise. It was a presence, a consciousness, seeping into the cracks of his dissolving mind. The whispers were clearer now, not just sounds, but insidious suggestions. Let go. It's easier to forget. Who needs a past? How long had it been? A week? A month? Time had lost all meaning. His reflection was a hollow-eyed stranger. The clothes he wore felt like a costume. He spent hours staring at the blank walls, trying to recall a single concrete memory that felt truly his own. A favorite food, the scent of rain on summer asphalt, the feeling of a loved one's hand in his. Nothing, just an abyss. He found the final note. It wasn't slipped under the door. It was on the pillow next to him when he woke, his heart lurching with a terror that was purely instinctual, a primal fear of the unknown that was now his constant companion. This note was shorter, just 2 words. Who now? He looked at his hands. They were just hands. No history etched into their lines. No connection to any past action. He tried to say his name. Arthur Finch. But the sounds felt alien, arbitrary. Letters strung together with no meaning, no anchor. Was that ever his name? He couldn't be sure. He walked to the window, pushing aside the heavy velvet curtains. The world outside was gray, indistinct. He didn't recognize the view. Had he ever seen it before? He felt no urge to leave, no desire to return to anywhere. There was no anywhere to return to. There was only room 217, and the man who stood within it, a blank slate, a vessel emptied. He turned back to the room, the writing desk, the bed, the tarnished brass number on the door. It felt familiar, not in a comforting way, but in the way that a cage becomes familiar to a creature born within it. This was his place now. Perhaps it always had been. The next morning, a new guest was scheduled for room 217. The concierge smiled his vacant smile as he handed over the heavy brass key. "A particular favorite," he murmured. Inside, the room was immaculate, the bed perfectly made, the velvet curtains drawn. On the writing desk, a single, unopened envelope addressed to the new occupant. What is a person? Stripped of their memories. Are we merely the sum of our experiences, our recollections? Room 217 offers no easy answers, only an echoing void where a self used to be. It's a chilling thought that the architecture of our identity could be so fragile, so easily dismantled, leaving nothing behind but a question mark. Perhaps the true horror isn't the ghosts or the ghouls, but the quiet erosion of who we are until we become just another vacant space waiting to be filled, or perhaps never to be filled at all. The Grand Chantry Hotel still stands, of course, and room 217, well, it's always ready for its next guest. Would you dare to turn the key? That's our tale for tonight on the Hauntline. We hope it stays with you long after the silence returns. If you felt a shiver down your spine or a questioning of the floorboards beneath your own feet, then we've done our job. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you do if you found yourself in room 217? And if you enjoyed this journey into the unsettling, please help us reach more listeners who crave the dark. Be sure to like this episode, subscribe to the Hauntline on your favorite podcast app, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new tale from the shadows. Sharing this episode with a fellow lover of the strange and unusual is the highest compliment you can pay. Until next time, sleep well if you can.